what are the causal relationship between neurons in MTB5 and conscious perception of visual motion? So the MTB5 area locates a bit farther away from the B1, B2 complex at the bottom, back of the head. It's slightly located around here, left side or right side of your brain. And then when this area, small areas in some people, and it's bigger in others, when they are damaged in both sides, then what happens is so-called akinematopsia. So according to Quest for Consciousness glossary, akinematopsia is a specific deficit in the perception of visual motion due to the cortical lesion in and around area MT. And then this can be quite compellingly demonstrated by the movie taken by some kind of volunteers. So we'll watch that.
So this is the video for akinematopsia made by some volunteers.
Compare the perception in monkey as well. So here's for example, within the human, what do we know about this MT? And using motion after effect, we know something quite interesting. If we use the stimulus such as this, concentric ring on the display, and that goes into expand or contract, expand, contract, then that can induce motion after effect as you imagine from this Buddha demo, right? And then you can also isolate the areas of the brain that strongly responds to this, expanding and contracting motion. And that's this, area MT. So here, what they did was presenting the stimulus, from as a baseline for 40 seconds, and then 40 seconds of the expansion first, right? 40. So x-axis now is a time in seconds, and it's really long because it's fMRI, it's slower. It's an expansion for 40 seconds, and then this particular area shows very strong response like this way. And then when it's shown the static, visual field, then it goes down like this way. And then another period of the 40 seconds. But now here they reversed the orientation, the direction of the motion. First, expanding, and then second, contracting. Expand, contract, repeatedly. But now, because it's balanced, it doesn't show the motion after effects, right? And then showing the static again. And then now contraction only. And then static, expanding contraction, and so on. So what they found here is that, first of all, the amount of the activation measured as a fMRI signal change during any kind of motion is more or less the same, right? But if it's static, then it reverts to baseline period. And then what they did, interestingly, was to analyze the data in two ways. So here, they first selected the period of the motion here. And then first computed this, expansion versus contraction period of the level of activity. And then subtracted that with the expansion only or contraction only. So in the end, what they found was this, it's more or less the same, 0% difference over 40 seconds. But if you imagine that, you are the subject, after 40 seconds of the expansion, you should see after effects here. And then after 40 seconds of contraction, you should see after effects here, right? And also after the expansion versus contraction, because it's balanced, we shouldn't expect some kind of, after effects during this period. And then what they did was that by subtracting this, activity after the expansion contraction reversing from this, single direction situation, they found this residual of the motion response, which could be as strong as 2% of response here, 1.8% here, and then it decays over time. And then what's quite nice and wise was that they asked subjects to do this Nuring motion experiment. So the same subject going into this experiment, but now measure the strength of the after effects, motion after effects, by some kind of a psychological procedure. And then what they found was that this quantified subjective experience is following the neural activity decay of the during the stationary period. So this is a very nice kind of the neural correlates of consciousness. This is very specific to MT and also comparable between the phenomenology and neural activity, right? And it's also a very nice kind of dissociation between the physical stimulus versus subjective experience. During the stationary period, all of the static period presents only the ring stimulus. So the stimulus itself is the same. But what the difference is a motion after effect conscious experience. That's a conscious percept part. That's a very nice, neat, study that was done long time ago. Now, coming back to this, new sums experiment. So what I briefly mentioned in the last video is that you can present different kind of a stimulus in different direction, where this particular neuron prefers, let's say, this neuron prefers up or compared to the bottom, down. And then depending on the change of this, strength of the motion, neuron may or may not distinguish these things. And then that can be, used to construct this proportion of the correct kind of measure for a neuron, recorded neuron. That could be like this, a white dot. And then they can correct many neurons over and over, and then construct this, curve per neuron, and then take the average. And then they compared what the monkey themselves as a person, as a one, sort of the individual can do in terms of the psychophysical task. And then they found this, black thing. And then it turns out that, the performance of the average neurons and the performance of the monkey is more or less the same. So that makes sense when MT neurons are responsible for perceptual decision making of this type. And further on, that is most critical, I would say, is that they stimulate the MT neurons. And as I said, that the MT neurons are clustered in MT, right? Because of the columnar organization. So electrically stimulating one part of the very minor part of the brain, passing the electrical current like this way, electrical stimulus delivered in that particular area of the brain, which prefers all, let's say, up left, kind of direction, and also commonly sharing the receptive field location as well. Because of the receptive columnar organization in MT, you can expect that stimulated thousands of 10,000 neurons have more or less the same kind of property, right? And then during the visual stimulation of the one particular direction, they stimulated this, combined it. And then what happens? So the prediction is that if the motion percept is elicited by the activity of this brain, then mimicking the activity of that brain should also change the percept, right? And then that's exactly what they found. So with stimulation of that preferred location, neurons, then the proportion of the preferred decision of the neurons increased like this way at each level of the correlation, motion strengths. And as a whole, the psychometric curve, the curve of the psychological performance shifted to the left. And that was the same for the other monkey or other situation here. Here, this is, the effect is much, much bigger. So that is very strong causal evidence to show that MT is related to this motion direction perception and also its decision. So in sum, in this video, I reviewed that MT neurons are likely to be causally responsible for qualia of visual motion. Phenomenology, psychophysics, fMRI, and neurophysiology provide all these converging evidence. And bilateral lesions abolishes motion qualia, akinetopsia, but not other type. And microstimulation interfere with the motion judgment. So this is very strong evidence. Now the question is, why does MT generate motion qualia? And what is special about MT, right? At least anatomically, input and output from MT or to MT is different. And potentially, neurons within MT may have a different kind of biophysics. And also local neural circuitry, like I said, in the layer structure or output input the relation to others are lawful, but there could be difference. And within the local areas of the brain, maybe the connectivity between each of the neurons may be slightly different. Although I said the columnar organization, the detail may be not that simple as the figure suggested. And without knowing this, it's very difficult to say that why MT has to generate MT motion qualia. And that's the part of the hard problem. However, we can, I think, make a lot of progress around this now that we know that MT is likely to be generating the motion qualia. And so to address this is sort of the general theme after the week 7 and especially week 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's it. See you later.